So my name is Kruse. I'm Emeritus Professor of Drug Discovery here at Amsterdam University.
That's all?
And your faith?
My faith, I'm Protestant. I'm a member of the Reformed churches in the Netherlands.
My name is Martijn Rep. I'm a professor in plant pathology here at the university. I just live up there. And I'm also a member of the Baha'i community.
I'm Heino Falcke. I'm a professor of radio astronomy and astroparticle physics at the Radboud University in Nijmegen, work on black holes, among other things. And I'm also Protestant, but in Germany. And I'm also an ordained lay minister in our church. So I sometimes preach, and I dope, and I bury people. So I marry them, so if there's an urgent need here afterwards, let me know.
You bury them as well?
Yeah, okay. I bury them, you know. If you
So then I can ask you, how did you get into your faith? So was it something that you were born with? Were your parents religious, or is it something that you chose during your lifetime?
Yeah, it's actually both. You are not born as a Christian, you're born as a baby, but my parents were Christians, so they raised me also as a Christian, but also personally I made a clear choice at the age of 17 to follow God.
And can you tell us a little bit more why you made that choice at that age? Was there something that happened then, or?
Yeah, it just happened. I had my questions, things that I didn't understand, and God, who is God, you cannot see him, you cannot feel him. But at that age, I had a sort of a spiritual moment, and then I made it clear, this is what I want to follow.
And Martijn, I think this happened differently for you?
Yes, I was not raised in any religion. We never went to church, we never read any holy books at home. And I started investigating when I was around 17-year-old.
Seems an age to start.
But I didn't make it took some time for me to investigate. So it was like more like a scientific investigation for me, because I was into science already at that age. I knew I was going to be a scientist, but then when I was around 16, 17, I discovered something. I discovered the Baha'i faith.
Can you tell us a little bit more to the public what the Baha'i faith is? Because I think we know what Protestantism is, but not Baha'i.
In a few words. We're celebrating the year 200 actually, of the Baha'i faith. It's a relatively young faith. At the same time, from the Baha'i perspective, it's not seen as a separate religion. So religion is seen as something that is universal, evolving, has several manifestations, different names, different cultures, but it's actually one. Religion is one. So Baha'i faith is not seeing itself as separate, but more like a new manifestation of something that exists already for a very long time and is evolving along with humanity. And this particular manifestation of this universal religion started about 200 years ago in Persia.
And so how did you choose, when you were 17, you started looking, how did you stumble upon the Baha'i faith, and when did you choose to practice it?
It was pure luck, because I had a classmate who was telling me about this faith, and I never took religion seriously, and now this intelligent guy was telling me about it, and he took it seriously, which made me curious. So it just triggered my curiosity.
So in a way, you also had the assumption, because you just said a smart guy who was also religious. So in a way, in the beginning, you were also quite...
Oh yes, I was quite arrogant. If that's what you mean, yeah.
No, just that the fact that you said it as there was also a smart guy who was also religious means that there was a stigma in the being a smart and being religious.
Oh yes, certainly. I mean, when I grew up, religion was not, in my whole family, my whole surrounding, no one took religion seriously, and so my prejudice was that religious people must be somehow less intelligent.
Okay, thank you. Heino Falcke.
Well, yeah, actually, I also grew up in a Christian family. It was, however, God was always someone who was distant, far away, and it was I was actually 14 when I suddenly woke up with the idea, there's something more to it than just some old stories. I mean, it was a feeling that God is love is someone. And so, it started for me then, in reading and discussing. So for me, it was like years of discussing with people and reading Bible and questioning everything. It was almost like a scientific research.
And what time? What was your age?
I said it was like, I think 14, 15 or so. But then, the questioning starts. I mean, that's when you start questioning things. And that's also when I decided to become a scientist, right? So it's almost the same age.
And what does religion tell to you? What kind of answer you look into religion? Yeah, Kruse.
I think religion is knowing things for sure that you do not understand. That's the best summary, I think, what faith is. It's about metaphysical phenomena, things that are above your imagination, but somehow you really firmly believe it. You know it for sure. That's religion.
Yeah. We're always taking the same sequence,
No,
but
yeah,
that's fine.
Maybe Heino can talk.
No. I was... Go ahead.
So the question is, what answers does religion give me?
What is religion to you?
What is religion? Because it's like, religion is something like... So I'm considering religion like a collective human enterprise, just like science, to investigate reality, to find principles and causes, and then to see how you can practice it. So religion has a strong practical side to it, just like science, at least experimental sciences, is that it's discovery, so it's research, it's exploration, but then it's also application in your own life. In the case of religion, is how to live a good life, how to practice virtues. So, and of course, the types of principles or causes you investigate in religion are different, or there is some overlap, but they tend to be different from science, which tends to more focus, I guess, on the material side of things. And religion, for me, tends to focus more on the spiritual side of things, as we can make, although there's not a clear-cut distinction. So, what answers does religion give me? I think the answers are from two sides. One of them is reading the writings it can also be the Bible or the Quran, but mostly read the Baha'i writings to get inspiration and to get insights. But maybe the most important answers come when you start to practice. So to really practice the virtues, practice a life of service, then actually the most valuable answers come to me. Just like with science, the most insightful answers come not just from learning the theory, but actually doing the experiments and observing the results.
Yeah, I like that description, because I think to me religion, actually faith is something that is holistic. It's the entire person. It's everything I do, I am. If I think about this theoretically, I think religion gives a framework how actually I view the world, how I view myself, how I view others, how I assign value to others. Actually, it gives value to me, but it also puts me into perspective. It gives a lot of value to myself, but it also tells me there's something much, much bigger and higher than I am. So I'm not the most important thing in the world, but I'm important, and so are you. And that's something that my religion, gives me.
I think a religion is about meaning of life, the purpose of life, the origin, the future, where everything goes to. That's the questions religion is relating with.
But we are trying to assess some of these questions as well with science, right? Like we are trying to assess the origin of life. We are trying to assess. So we are trying to assess these questions with science. What is science to you? What kind of answers?
Yes, science is a typical human activity, so it's fraught with human limitations. So where religion is about things that you know for sure, science is about things that you do not know for sure, but at least you understand them. Religion is about things you do not understand. It's about metaphysical reality, and science is about physical, biological reality.
But you just said science is about things you don't know for sure, and religion is about things you do. But on the other hand, science is about biology and things you can actually practice. So for me, that looks kind of opposite of each other. That you say that science is stuff you don't know for sure, and religion is.
Yeah, science is a human activity, so it has its limitations. All scientific theories are limited and are falsified at some moment. That gives rise to a new theory. And religion is of a difficult kind. This is something very deep into it that you know for sure, that cannot be falsified.
But Chris, is that true? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Because I would think that all religion, even my own, has its limitations. And that is fundamentally rooted in our human limitations to understand the world and what's beyond the world, right? So, I mean, if you think about the beginning of the universe, you think about, you think about what God is. Whatever that is, it will always be too big for any of us to understand. And any religion will be fraught with the same limitation because it's interpreted by people, right? Even if you think that God is perfect and is almighty and everything, we are imperfect and not knowledgeable. Even if we feel something is true about God, it doesn't mean that we have a complete picture, right?
I think I agree with that. The perspective.
You have to be.
Is it still working?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. So I would agree. Like, I'm not sure. In my experience, there's not a big difference between science and religion in that sense. In the sense of being certain, to having certitude. I mean, I think there is always doubt on some level, and there's always certitude on another level. Both, for me, in science and religion. I mean, everything. I mean, we are limited, like you say, I think, by our human imagination. So I'm also telling the students when I give classes on cell biology that everything I'm showing you is our imagination. All those drawings of cells and everything. It's not that there are no living cells that don't exist, but everything we imagine of them, and everything we see, everything we reproduce in our brains are always producing pictures and images, which is like our imagination. We do exactly the same thing in religion. We imagine God. We imagine how God reveals himself. We imagine heaven. We imagine hell. It's our imagination. Doesn't mean that those words don't refer to something real, but we all have to deal with our own imagination of how things are. We make models of the universe, whether it's the material universe or the spiritual universe, and then, of course, we can test those models against reality. And to me, there's not such a big difference between the practice of science and the practice of religion in this sense.
But isn't it difference that the one is personal and the one is, for example, we can test theories and we can explain how a certain theory would work to our peers, to you, and we can all talk about it. But isn't religion more, you said it before, it's interpretable. It's the way you interpret your scriptures. So in what way are you able to test a religion if it's so personal?
Personally.
Yeah.
You have to test it personally. That's the point, and it's based, of course, if you look at holy writings, right? The Bible, which is a library of books, and it's a library of experiences of people throughout the ages, different cultures, different genders, different ages. In a time which was much rougher and maybe not quite as complicated, but still very dangerous, right? Maybe much more dangerous than it's today. So in a way, maybe in a time which to some degree was rougher, but also poorer, purer, not poorer, purer, also poorer. And so I think, but what they experienced then, the spiritual experiences, are the same we can experience still today. The same questions they had then, still today, or the discoveries they made. It's a discovery about sort of God, what God is, who God is. You see that as an evolution also in the Bible, discovering God in different aspects of it, and how humans relate to it. That's something you can still do today, I would say. Everybody can do this, and it will, you will discover that certain things you'll find as well. Every person is different, so you see yourself in a mirror differently, but you still see a person. And so I think religion is testable for everybody.
Okay, so
Yeah, I want to clarify a little bit why I'm saying that there is a difference between science and religion. Because I think about the existence of God, nothing can happen that will deprive me of that feeling. It is absolutely sure. And in science, that's different. Science, every theory can be undermined. So I still think there's a difference. Religion is about things you know for sure. Nothing can endanger it, in my view.
Well, you hope, but you know.
there's a question from the audience. If go ahead. Is it on?
Perfect. Well, a little bit of a problem because I wanted to ask you a question. Well, all right. I think sweet. All right. I think it's working.
Thank you.
Well, a little bit before, I was a little bit hesitant in asking such a small question, but a little while before you said, if we assume God to be perfect, we as the interpreter of God are imperfect, and therefore there will be, so to speak, a little bit of, maybe a little bit of insecurity in our interpretation. Do you mean with imperfect limited? Is that the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
So therefore,
yeah, absolutely limited because
right.
just our human. Just think about physics, right?
Yeah.
If you think about four-dimensional space,
Yeah.
our just minds cannot fathom that. It's just same with you know aspects of God which are sort of out of this world, which are undimensionable. You know, no time, before time, after end of time. You know, multi-dimensional time, whatever. Yeah. These aspects are something we just cannot understand. We'll never be able to fully understand. Right. At least not in this life. So who knows what happens
Beautiful.
after.
I just wanted to reassure that.
Okay, thank you. So now we all know something about our speakers, but now we actually would like to know what you think of religion. So if you go to your phone and go to shakespeak.me, you can log in, and then there's going to be one question about all of your religion, and then we can see how the audience is next to us knowing a little about you. So,
like this, otherwise it starts to whistle. And also something. Otherwise,
these are the questions. So 12 people have responded now. I'm gonna wait 5 more seconds.
What's agnostic?
Oh, it's supposed to be agnostic.
Okay.
Why isn't the Baha'i faith there, actually?
It should be.
It's on the other, I guess.
I think it's it was the G one, but then I think it fell.
Too young.
But we actually have more, but I think the PowerPoint just cut it off on this slide.
I was just kidding.
Okay, let's see. Oh, it's still going. So can you guys see the?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have mostly atheists, as was expected from a science faculty.
Yeah, sort of.
Okay, so then my next question. Is there anything written in your scriptures about science or the approach to science? Martijn.
Yes. Of course, the Baha'i faith originated in the 19th century, where there was already something called science at that time. And basically, it's quite obvious in the scriptures, in the Baha'i scriptures, that we should pursue science. Science is good. Science should be practiced. And in fact, more than that, science can be is also a way to investigate reality, and even to investigate religion itself. So we can actually use. I mean, it's building up knowledge, and it's application of knowledge, and those insights from science can be used also to question interpretations, perhaps, of holy books, or maybe some stories that are part of religion. You can actually, it's not that you have to attack them, but you can investigate them. So you can use, science is a human enterprise that is very much encouraged in the Baha'i writings, and also to achieve harmony between these two huge human projects, science and religion, is also very important. So the harmony of science and religion is actually listed as sometimes one of the basic principles of the Baha'i faith, to not just because it's like interesting only, but also because it's needed. Actually, humanity needs to have harmony. It's described as two wings, the wing of science and the wing of religion. And to be able to fly, they need to be harmonized. If you just flap one wing or they go against each other, you don't fly.
Okay, thank you. Zoe?
Yes, I have a question because I was wondering how you feel about that. Because, when you can because if you can investigate science, you say, well, I know this is true. So if we take this scientific approach to religion, and religion proves what you know to be true, of science proves what you know to be true to be wrong, how would you interpret that? How would you handle that?
Yes.
I think there's a situation that never occurred in my life, and I hope it will never occur in the future as well. I think it's not possible that science will give a result that really undermines my religion's existence. So I think that it's a theoretical problem that did not rise in my life.
No, but I wonder what would happen if it did. Would that make you like? I mean, I know it's a big question to ask, but would that make you move
maybe
away?
you have to describe what you mean by. Because you may different backgrounds. You know, people may say, okay, the Bible says, there are 6 days of creation, right, and that science proves it wrong, and you don't just don't accept this. But I think that's not what you're talking about. I think what you try to talk about is your sense, your feeling of you having a relation with God, right? That's, I think,
yeah.
It's like I would say. Is there science that tells me I don't love my children? I would not say that that would happen, right? That's what I would answer. But there may be things, the way I treat my children or the way I deal with them, that science could tell me how I could do better.
Yes.
Even though I think one should not read too many science books if you want to raise children. But anyway.
Okay, thank you. I think that's a good analogy. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to answer the question how my religion is related to science. The Bible actually encourages science. And my favorite verse of the Bible is Psalm 111, verse 2. That's very short. Great are the works of the Lord. Those who love these will explore and investigate them. So the Bible encourages us to investigate the nature, to investigate reality, because it tells us about God. And actually, the science, modern science, has been grounded for great part by Christians. In the 15th and 16th century, Newton, one of the greatest physicists of all time, was a very religious person. So religion encourages to do science because it tells you more about God, about his works.
Okay.
I would not say every religion does that, and there are parts of our Protestant religion where this is not encouraged. There are communities or churches where people don't like that very much. But I would say that overall the Christian tradition is very much in line with science. I mean, all the universities came out of churches, of monasteries, the tradition. And a very important thing in Genesis, for example, the stars and the moon are just, lights on the sky. Not ghosts or spirits or whatever. I mean, the entire universe described in Genesis 1 is just of things that comes out of, the words of a creator, but is not holy or magic itself. Universe just things. You can investigate them and explore it and learn something about the underlying causes.
Last comment and then...
Just because there's no Muslim sitting here, but I think it's important also to mention the contribution of Islamic civilization to even perhaps before Europe. The crucial importance of Islamic civilization to scientific developments. And I'm not going into detail, but I just want to mention it so as not to think it all emerged with
Yeah.
Christian monks.
And
so
no, but without trying to offend anybody. But if you go back, Bible goes back to the Jewish tradition, and same Islam has similar roots. So I think that thinking has been around for a long time, 2,000 years or longer.
Okay, so before we're going to go in some very huge scientific theories, we're just going to show you a small clip. Okay, yeah, in a minute. But the sound doesn't work again. Skip this. Okay, then we have a question.
All right, we are going to do the question you have.
Yes, related to this topic. Is it?
Closer.
Yes? Okay, well, related to this topic, I was wondering, would you be able to specify what type of thinking system would...
a bit closer, please.
Sorry?
A bit louder, closer.
Sorry. I was wondering whether you would be able to specify what kind of thinking system religion would be grounded in, according to you. What type of thinking system in
So
religion?
what type of thinking system?
Yeah, because to me personally, I would say it's very hard to say religion is actually grounded in formal logic, since, for example, God in its existence, I wouldn't say it's very logic. God can't make a stone that it can't lift, that he can't lift himself, for example, which is just a logical contradiction. So would you say religion also applies with the laws of logic or different thinking system?
If you look at, God, of course, is an abstract concept. God are two things. Right? There are two God concepts. One is the prime mover, the underlying cause of everything, and the other one is your personal connection to that underlying cause. And one has to separate them. I think that underlying cause for sure exists. Right? We have we have the beginning of the universe. We start with an abstract set of natural laws which determines everything. Which are actually sometimes beyond we cannot derive them by logic. We just have to accept they are there. Right? Something is there in an abstract form. We call them natural laws, which is just given. Right? So that's like an abstract concept of God. And that's inherently very, very logical. But then the next question is, does that prime cause have anything to do with me? And I'm not just a logical person, right? I fear, not because it's logic, it's just because I am, because that's how I am. And there you cannot apply logic, right? If you happen to love someone very deeply, it's maybe chemistry, but it's not just logic, right? Yeah, what I want to say, but that's logic has its limits.
So you said it about the creation of the universe and about the creation of the earth and in the end all humans. So what does your religion has to say about creation? And it's interesting because you are an astrophysicist. So
okay, Chris almost was ready to jump up, but to me the most in recent thinking, I love Genesis because it really is sort of an evolutionary sequence of the world, which in many stages, in the end, you arrive at human beings. But the most important one, I think, sentence of Genesis is, "And God spoke." Yeah, or in the beginning was a word. So it starts with the word. And I think the same in physics. We start with the natural laws. We start with the word. We start with the idea. Out of that, everything flows.
But so as an astrophysicist, do you believe in the Big Bang Theory?
Sure.
But you also believe that God created the world?
Of course.
So, okay. So God created the universe, and then the Big Bang Theory happened?
Well, we figure out how this works, right? So I try to think of a good example. I very much believe in sort of the natural evolution as we see it, based on natural laws. You know, the stars came into existence. Actually, elements came into existence out of the Big Bang. Gas clouds were forming, stars were forming, new elements were formed in the center of stars. They made dust. Out of dust, planets were formed. Out of that, you know, our planet came with plans out of which humans, animals, and humans evolved, and so forth, all based on natural laws. Isn't that amazing? That on a few sets of natural laws, very few, all of this comes into existence at the end.
But that was not the question. The question is God the one who is driving that flow of creation? Or
I think he's the source of that word, so to speak. Yeah, he's the source of those laws. So natural laws, to me, are not a sign of not being God. These are part of God. That's what I feel. I still think that God who is there in the beginning is not just something, is someone that I can relate to, that I can pray to, that I can expect something from. I still think everything happens within the natural laws, but there's almost everything is possible within the natural laws. Right? There's so many things we can do creatively. We can steer with our own, you know, we can make things move. We can things, you know, go up and down with just our will. And that's amazing if you think about it. Just the sheer fact that with my pure thoughts, I can move this glass up, right, against all the natural laws. It just goes up because I want it. And it goes down because of gravity, okay? Well, I didn't want to try that because it... So it's... right?
Now you're going to become dangerous.
Yes, I'm dangerous person.
I want to underline what Falcke Heino is saying. The scriptures, the Bible, clearly says that reality became into existence because God spoke. He spoke 8 times. And when God is speaking, something as a miracle happens. So reality became into existence because there's a creator who spoke 8 times consecutively.
But isn't reality only reality if there's someone to actually make it reality, actually to observe it? So how would you say, if something is reality, then I would have to say, I see this, and that's what makes it reality. So before there was anyone to observe that, was it actually reality?
But so what you're saying is before there were any humans, the universe didn't exist because nobody was observing it. Which is an interesting concept, you know. So.
No, we're saying it is reality, but if there's no one who can actually say that they saw it, so how can it be real?
Yeah. Nobody can actually ask the question whether something is real or not.
Yeah, but now we're going into philosophical...
Yeah, but it's a very interesting point because also natural laws, for example, don't exist. Right? Natural laws, nobody can actually touch a natural law that we study. They are abstract concepts that we have derived with our minds to describe how nature works. No proton has any concept of natural laws. Because that's an abstract concept. It follows them, you know, but it doesn't understand them. Okay. And so that's the weird thing about that we humans bring into the nature, that we think about things. We have abstract concepts that the matter doesn't have. So we bring something completely new, I think, into this universe. Maybe not just us, but you know, but at least we do it.
So we discover these natural laws. We, through investigation, discover how the mechanism works, and it's universal, right? Once we prove something, until somebody disproves it, that's how it is, and nobody can say that the proton does not exist, even though it's a concept, right? The concept of the proton. So now, is God, as the summum of all these natural laws, a human creation? We created God, or we discover God through natural laws?
I would say he's as real and as abstract as the natural laws are, and as created in our minds as natural laws are created in our minds.
So Martijn, as an evolutionary biologist, do you believe in Darwin's theory of evolution?
I think Darwin is a brilliant scientist. Of course, learning from breeding, that we as humans can select certain animals or plants, and then certain concepts. There's genetics there, which means you can actually evolve. We can actually evolve plants and animals. We do that all the time in domestication, and then you apply that. Oh, maybe this holds true for the entire living, entire life on this planet. Maybe there's actually something like selection, natural selection going on, explaining all this variation in life. I think he wasn't the only one, but he was certainly one of the brilliant biologists to discover these mechanisms, and these mechanisms of genetic variation and selection. I mean, you can do experiments about them. It's confirmed time and again. So there's no need and no necessity to deny those things.
Okay, we have a question.
Yeah, I have.
Can you
hear me? Okay. I have a question that's relating to how you would view the Big Bang Theory and the Darwinian theory of evolution as a Christian. I wonder how you would fit if you assume that indeed we as humans evolved from plants into mammals, into apes, into humans. How would you put very defining Christian concepts like the sinfall into that story? How would that fit?
The story of Adam and Eve, right? So is actually a story of our human development, of becoming humans, what we are today. So I try to explain it in simple. It's a theory, right? So, but if you are an ape or whatever, you don't worry too much about the future and about what's going to happen to you. I mean, you probably have some feelings, as we know these days, right? So animals have some elements of what we have as well, but they don't think, they plan long term into the future, what's going to happen with them and so forth. And the crucial element of the story of Adam and Eve is that they taste from the tree of knowledge, the tree of science, so to speak. They know, they understand, they know what's going to happen to them. They know all the problems they're going to have. They see all the problems of the world. Right? We suffer from the problems of the entire world. Animals may see their little thing in their locality, right? But we see all the problems the entire world have. And so immediately with knowledge comes suffering, and also comes that free will and the possibility to decide against what's good and what's right. Right? We can very purposely decide, to do the wrong things because we want to serve us and not the world or each other. And we can decide to not live in harmony with the nature and not in harmony with God ourselves. I think that's, to me, the sin, the ultimate separation from God. Just being ourselves. And the other aspect of I always mention about Adam and Eve, what's the first thing that Adam and Eve do after they eat from the tree of knowledge? They cover their naughty parts, right? So they're this fig leaf, right? They're ashamed. It's no other animal does that. Right? So it's a very, very interesting observation of the human soul and human spirit and human being. Now, we are ashamed for some reasons. And I think and that reason has to do with us being able to understand, to know, and make wrong choices.
Okay, so you have something to add to this?
No, not so much to add to the question. I think Heino answered the question in a proper way. Or you want to still continue on the discussion? Because I wanted to comment on Big Bang and on Darwin's evolution theory, how I look at it as a Christian.
Okay.
But
is your question answered?
More or less,
okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Wow. It would have been amazing, could have answered that in 5 minutes completely, right? So
I think Big Bang and Darwin's evolution theory are perfect examples of scientific theories. The Big Bang theory is criticized also at this university very much. And also Darwinic evolution has its very big questions related to it. So I think these are perfect scientific theories. There's good reason to believe in them. There's also good reason to criticize them. It's limited knowledge. So I would never say I believe in Big Bang or I believe in Darwinic evolution as I believe in God. It's of a different level. I'm not worried at all about Big Bang or about Darwinic evolution as a Christian. It's nice. It's a scientific theory which we can criticize, which we can study in more detail.
Okay.
And what about life outside the Earth? Because it's something we kind of believe now, but we'll know that there are many. We know now that there are many exoplanets out there, and some of them are just by chance similar to Earth, and just by chance life has emerged somewhere else. Either life came to this planet from outside at the first stance, or if it's just an emergent thing of chemistry. And so how good God behave, or how does your faith behave towards this approach?
I'm very open to this point. I always say it would be a big surprise for me if there's life at other planets, but I do not hold it for impossible. So it would be a big surprise, and maybe the works of God are much greater than I even know by now. So I leave it open. It wouldn't be a danger for my faith at all.
Mm-hmm. No, I would see it the same way. The director of the Vatican Observatory actually said at some point when he was asked, would you baptize an alien? He said, if she asks for it, right? So it would be part of the creation of the entire universe, would fall under the same laws, under the same... Perhaps it would be interesting to talk with them about their spiritual experience, which would be different because, faith is also always related to history. It's and the discovery process. They might have had different discovery process. But I would be surprised if in their history there would be no spiritual elements.
But it does say in the Bible, and then God created the earth. It doesn't say the world, it doesn't say the universe, it says the earth. So
The universe. God created universe. That was his first act.
Yeah.
Then the earth, and on the earth is where we live. So in what way?
Yeah,
it doesn't say specifically. It doesn't say earths.
Well, actually, it actually talks about the heavens, for example, in plural. So that has to do with the language. You have to be very careful what the language actually means and what it implies. They're even actually Adam and Eve. They are actually these foreign types of human beings already in the very early phase of the Bible, which may speak of early meetings with humans and Neanderthals or whatever. You can think of anything you like. Scholars have been thinking about, or in the Middle Ages, that there could be multiple worlds. In fact, it was prohibited. The very first censor of scientific statements was like 1277 in Paris, and it was forbidden to say that God could not make multiple worlds, because that would limit the almighty power of God.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So to say that, for example, Giordano Bruno was killed because he was questioning, because the church would not allow, multiple words and so forth, is I don't know whether it's true or not, but it's certainly limited. Certainly throughout Christian thinking, multiple worlds was a possibility.
Martijn, you've been very quiet in this discussion.
Yeah, because it's because it's like really theoretical.
Yeah.
In a way.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of interesting, but I think, to me, my urge, also by being here, talking about science or religion, is to see how we can apply them. So I tend to. Maybe that I'm not. It's interesting to have all kinds of theories about other planets and things. But I think it's much more urgent to see how we can actually work together, how science and religion can collaborate to actually save this planet in a way. You know, so I'm kind of more focused on what is more important to talk about. I think it's more important to talk about, you know, what is our purpose? How do we unfold our potential as human beings individually? How do we unfold our potential as humanity as a whole to actually make some progress? You know, so and I think both science and religion have something to say here.
Okay, but then the last bridge I can make, so the last question was, all life is equal. So if you would say that, does your faith categorize human being or human existence above anything else? And if so, then how would we respond to other life? Either animals, either the environment, either life on other planets?
I think all life has been created by God. So in a sense, they are equal. And also the Bible states that God doesn't only take care of people, but also of animals, of plants. So in a sense, all that has been created by God is equal. But the big but is that only from humans it is said that they received the Spirit of God. And that's not stated for animals or for plants or for atoms or for protons. So only humans are gifted in a special way. So they're equal, but there are some creators are more equal than others.
I think, Martijn, in our pre-talk you said something about veganism and how that could be something for faith.
About? So you
veganism and you know, eating meat and vegetables and...
Oh.
So, like, how do you? Is all life? Are humans as worthy as animals, or?
Well, yeah. You know, practically speaking, we cannot. You know, we will assign less value to bacteria than to humans. Well, you can theoretically say all life is equal, and why stop at life? Why not rocks? You know, but it's not really practical. So we can have all kinds of discussions around this, and of course, you know, as human beings, we assign value to creatures that look like us, you know. So we tend to assign most value to our fellow human beings, and perhaps a bit more to those that look like us than to other human beings, perhaps intuitively. But let's say we ascribe equal value to all human beings. And then the next thing is to the animals that look most like us, right? And then all the way down to single cellular organisms that we, you know, and plants that we eat and stuff. So it's to assign value is typically a religious thing to do. I mean, science doesn't necessarily give us those values, you know? It just describes how reality is. And then perhaps we can say, okay, something that is more complex, something that has like 10 billion neurons that work together to create something that is somehow consciousness or whatever. Maybe that's more valuable, but it's also like a bit arbitrary in a way. So we cannot derive these values just by observation or just using logic for that in that sense. Maybe values are illogical, essentially illogical in a way.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's very natural that animals eat animals, right? That's part of the evolution and part of the natural science. But in the Bible, actually, the ultimate picture of peace is when the lion and the lamb, you know, live together and they don't have to eat each other, right? So that's an ultimate dream, but natural reality is quite different. What the Bible does is, I mean, as you say, I think you nicely described it as, you know, all things created by God, so all have a value, but it assigns a particular also responsibility to humans, because they are the ones that have the chance to modify this planet. And that actually is absolutely true. We are completely modifying this planet, and we ever have. Even the very first, humans, you know, indigenous people have completely changed the ecology of even America, Australia, whatever. We've killed the big mammals and whatnot in a very short time scale. So we have a responsibility. So the Bible also gives us responsibility, and that is something that comes, you know, from that's part of a value system, you know, because it's valuable. You have to take care of it.
So we are we all agree, scientists and religious people, in making a better world and try to fix what they are already destroying. But for some of us, we are majority atheists, as the poll said, me myself as well. Sometimes it's hard for us to understand how religion can work in the if there were software, how can you run in your mind religion and science at the same time? And how does religion make you a better scientist in that way? Because for some of us it's contrapository and we cannot do both things. But you are doing it, and probably you are doing it right. So
actually, by being a Christian and by being a scientist, it makes both activities nicer. It's sort of a way, it stimulates each other. For me as a Christian, science becomes much nicer. And my faith becomes more supported while I'm doing science. I learn about the incredible complexity of life, the incredible volume of the universe, the elementary particles. It's all mystery, actually. So it leads me to a better view of the Almighty God, how He has been able to create it. So it makes my faith richer and makes my science deeper.
Martijn?
I'm not sure if there's I don't see there's a big distinction between you and me. I mean, we can define ourselves, I can define myself as a Baha'i, as a believer. You can define yourself as an atheist. But this is just our self-definition. In the end, it's what we do, what we practice, the values we practice. So I don't, this is theoretical difference to a large extent, So in the Baha'i writings, faith is described as first conscious knowledge and then the practice of good deeds. In that sense, you have faith too, right? Yeah. So I'd rather think that we have all faith. We all attach value to. We all have purpose. We all need purpose. We all have volition. We all need volition. We all need values as human beings. We are the same in that sense, And our religious theories, or absence of religious theories, doesn't change that so much. So I'm not sure if my religious convictions make me a better scientist. I hope they make me a better human. And in science, to practice science, you need the same values. You need integrity, for instance. There's a lot of things about integrity. But you don't need to attach yourself to a religion to see the value of integrity for practicing science. So I think there is much more common among all of us here, whatever we ascribe to, than we think by dividing ourselves into certain identities.
We all have our worldview. Because you're a human, you have a worldview.
No, I like very much what you say. I think that is... and especially the fact that you say that we all have some kind of faith underlying views, worldviews that we use. Even if you're atheist, you have that, and you define yourself. What religion does for me, it helps me to formulate these things. It helps me to learn them, why the stories, to formulate them, to talk about them. But it also gives me a second leg to stand on in science. Science is very competitive, and I don't need science to prove my self-worth. I don't need to, my life does not depend whether I'm scientifically successful. So it's easy for me to say because I'm very often in the newspaper these days and very visible. But I don't do this because I need to get eternal life from my science, right? Or need to make my name heard due to my science. I know I am valued and important because, God loves me. That's the underlying thing that drives me. And so I can do all the other things for free, so to speak. So it gives me free roaming and to do things and try things, and because I stand on that ground. I think that is something that religion makes it, very, very valuable for me, and that's why I'm glad. I have that.
We have a question.
Yeah. I liked what you were saying. Yeah, is it okay?
You can take the microphone if you want.
You have to really talk like this.
Like
so
this?
it's, yeah.
Better? So I liked what you were saying, that religion can help us with...
Louder, please. Like, way louder.
I liked what you were saying, that religion can help us with practicing values and moral issues in general. But I wonder what's your idea about the rituals that are in all the religions, that in some cases they can be viewed as useless and waste of time, while you can read an interesting scientific paper instead of following some steps. I like sometimes in some religions you have gatherings and you talk about some moral and like some interesting issues. You make people think and wonder and question stuff. But in some cases it's just like a bit useless following of instructions and.
Sorry, what's your question?
About rituals.
Okay.
Rituals.
The value, whether they're useless. Well, I can tell you a useless ritual. You all fly to a certain meeting point. Someone stands in the front on the pulpit, talks about 100 people sitting there with their laptops open, reading their emails. That's called a scientific conference. It's a ritual that we do all the time, but it's often fairly useless. And the most important thing are the coffee breaks in between, like a church. Sometimes the most important ritual is the coffee, afterwards, where you talk with each other. So they're useless rituals in church. You never know which one. Some conferences are actually quite useful, but not all of them.
Yeah. Martijn?
Yeah, so rituals can mean very many different things, right? So I have my daily prayers, I say. I don't call them a ritual. Mm-hmm. There are gatherings where we pray together. We can call that a ritual or not. I don't know. I think rituals can be, for some, be extremely valuable, because they can evoke a certain consciousness or a certain self-reflection, or they can invoke something, maybe your higher self in a way. Mm-hmm. You can bring it, maybe like prayer does to me, and rituals may do to some people, evoke the higher, the higher moral self in a way. So to confirm yourself that it's good to be of service to others, that it's good to be, to sacrifice yourself for the higher good. So I think rituals can have that purpose, I think, and they can also become meaningless. I think there's certainly that as well. And I think it's up to us to see, what works for us in a way. It's almost, it's in a way, it's also a little bit practical.
But then in some religions you are punished for the...
We only have 2 minutes left, so I want to give the floor to another question, but thank you. You can always come back later and ask them after the...
I wanted to go back to the initial point with the different softwares running in your mind. Why does science and faith maybe hurt each other? If you use religion to explain anything, does that then take away the need to explain it with science? For the old Greeks, it might be the lightning bolt came from Zeus, and nowadays it might be the natural laws are this way because God taught us. And this takes away the need for us to investigate them. And if we do investigate them, are we not then saying, well, I said God did this, and now it turns out he did not did this. Am I not going against my beliefs?
Turns out we're still doing active research on lightning. Even myself, we had papers in Nature recently on how lightning starts. We still don't know in detail. But the question that you wrestle with is not how does lightning initiate, right? So which physical processes, but why did it struck my daughter yesterday, for example? Or that's the question, and that question science will never be able to answer. Right? If you are struck down by spear or whatever, or rock, right? You already 2,000 years ago knew the physical process that you're going to die because of that. If you're struck by lightning, there is a physical process that kills you. But why is it happening to me? What does it mean to me? That's a question that you cannot answer scientifically. That you need to find out yourself as a person how to deal with it.
I would disagree with the why, but I can go along with that. What does it mean to me?
Okay, good.
So maybe very briefly, if I understand the question well, it's like, do our holy books or our religious communities actually stimulate investigation of reality, or stifle the need to investigate? And I think that can differ. I mean, for me, it stimulates. You know, I feel stimulated by the challenges in the Baha'i writings and about the Baha'i community, because it's, you know, we are extremely stimulated to investigate how things are. So I think it's just a matter of how you practice it in a way. It can be both, I guess. I think you can also like have this perhaps false sense of knowing, like this is how it describes, so now I know, there's no need anymore to investigate. I think this can also happen in a way. So it is actually, you know, both are possible, I guess.
Yeah, I want to comment briefly as well, because I always ask myself the question, where's this anxiety coming from? That religion and science would be in conflict. I would like to invite you to accept that religion makes science nicer. There is no way of conflict whatsoever. So let us see them both as a gift. That there's a religion, that there's science. It's a gift from God, and let's practice both. It will make life better and nicer.
Okay, I think that was it. It's 1 o'clock. Thank you so much for being here, and I would love to thank all the speakers. And I'm sure if you have any questions, they would answer them after this. So thank you very much for being here. And also, we're always looking for more people. So thank you.
Well, thanks for having us.